turn my volume up. And I'll turn y'all's volume up. And I will say, greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And welcome back to our discussions on, and our review kind of not walkthrough, but our review and flip through the PDF of the playtest for Pathfinder 2nd Edition's playtest. We're focusing mainly on the core rulebook right now and looking through it and saying our opinions, not just on the content within, but also the physical layout. We kind of discussed the physical layout last time, so you won't have any surprises this time, I don't think. But first off, before we begin, a disclaimer, and we'll do our announcements. Less than 5 minutes, you can time me. This is an adult podcast that sometimes features adults that sometimes use adult language. You have been warned. The Patreon for both Black Dragon Gaming and the Inn of Planar Crossroads, both of whom are represented here by their respective players and one of their channel heads, have their Patreon going. The Patreon for the Inn of Planar Crossroads currently has two goals. The $50, when we hit $50 a month, which we are halfway-ish towards, now that we picked up another patron, so thank you. We will give away a rulebook. At $100 a month, we will give away the special edition Pathfinder playtest rulebook. So I still got it in the wrap, in case someone was wanting to collect it that way. You get to do that whole of taking off the plastic yourself if you want to do that, or leave it in it if you want to leave it collected like that. But it is yours to do with as you please after it is given away. But at $100 a month. We're currently going to be talking about, like we said, the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rulebook. And we have our next subscriber appreciation one-shot is going to be at 400. Colin has volunteered to run that one, assuming that we can get him, his schedule worked out and everything. Should be pretty fun. I know I will enjoy watching it. This month we're going to give away a credit or a gift card, or however you want to look at that, to the Hero Forge mini site. So you would have some extra help with getting a mini that you wanted there. And finally, we'll do an update for the audiobook project. The audiobook project, as of this recording, is still going on. It's a little bit slower than I'd like for it to be, but that's mainly my fault, and having not getting to work on it consistently all through the day like a full job. It is one of those things that is a project. So I have asked for a little help, and I'm getting a little help from Kane. Thanks to him, we should be able to get this through a little bit faster so everyone can have it. I'm trying to get it done so we're going to start putting up pieces of it, hopefully soon. But we're going to be putting up pieces of the audiobook soon, hopefully. Because I've got some of it edited, and you're helping me a little bit, try to get out the noise and get out the bounces going and stuff like that. So hopefully, it'll all work out well soon. We're going to be recording the Paladin section soon. But that's it. And we are within 5 minutes. I know because the recording is there. I can see it on the timer. So, all that said, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today, which is the Pathfinder rulebook for the playtest. We made it to Ancestries and Backgrounds last time, I believe.
Yeah, we didn't completely finish Chapter 2. We still have to do Backgrounds and Languages. If we're going to finish these videos, I think they should be at the end of a chapter, just so we sort of get the whole thing in.
Okay. We are going to not go for like 2 hours like we did last time, 2.5 hours. No. We're going to keep it at an hour. The Around the Hearths are meant to be an hour.
We also went through like all the stuff at the beginning, as well as Chapter 2. So I think we can probably force our way through most of the classes.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
All right. So
on to page 38 with the backgrounds.
Yep. So there's the ancestries there. La da 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 da. We talked about dwarf and such. talked about how we liked the art. Going down, goblin, halfling, human, which we liked the change to the half-orcs and half-elves. Or I think most of us did.
There was a little bit of back and forth. I think it's neat that they're doing it that way. I'm not sure if that was the perfect implementation of changing the backgrounds, but you do get more than one thing out of taking the half-elf or half-elf ancestry feat. You get like a couple, and if you take it again, you get all of them.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly balanced if you just want to grab some stuff.
Mm. All right. So backgrounds. First off, I kind of like backgrounds. I like the idea of having a background be something that is a background, not necessarily something you're doing in combat or something like that. A lot of the times in first edition, you would take traits because, hey, this trait is going to help me in the long run in battle. Not necessarily because, hey, this is going to make sense from my backstory. So.
Well, and there were so many traits. There are, I should say, so many traits in first edition. I think there's probably around 1,500 of them or something. And if you wanted to piecemeal through them to find something that was thematically interesting for your character, your patience would usually run out somewhere around the first one, and then your second trait was like reactionary or whatever the one gives you bonus to your save or something. You know, it would be something flavorful and then something mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
And there are always one just always no reason in diversifying.
Ooh, you're very choppy, Joe.
Am I very choppy?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll
fix that.
We will fix that.
I'd say my favorite thing about it is it makes sure that just about everyone has something for downtime.
Yes. That's definitely
because
true.
The lore skill lets you, like, practice, most lores at least, let you practice it during downtime. So, like, if someone wants to craft, everyone else still has stuff they can do. And be, like, beneficial towards the finances of the party, or at least have cool role-playing scenarios.
Yeah. Like, let me see, the Acolyte gives you... We're not going to run through each of them, but you get a stat boost. You get 2 dedicated stat boosts options. Like the Acolyte gets Constitution Wisdom, the Blacksmith gets Strength or Intelligence, which I think is a nice touch. I'm glad that they put Intelligence in there as well as Strength, because you do have to learn. You have to learn stuff as a blacksmith. You can't just go out there and be a good blacksmith by saying, "Hey, I'm going to throw this in the fire and beat on it some with a hammer."
Oh yeah, there's a lot of technique involved.
So, it also makes it fun and easy for a person to take a background, say like blacksmith, and say, I don't want to be an ex-blacksmith. I want to be a thatcher. So you can say, oh, okay, you can be a thatcher, and you can take you basically get reflavor it and say, okay, instead of choosing strength and intelligence, you choose dexterity and intelligence or something like that.
Okay.
And then you have the specialty craft skill feat for thatchery, and you are trained in fishing lore, perhaps.
Lore.
Yeah.
I don't know about fishing lore, because you fix roofs and you don't fix fish.
I thought Thatcher was the one that fixed nets.
No, that's a
Fletcher.
No, that's
an arrow.
No, a hatchery is someone who raises chickens.
Fishery.
Yes.
Okay, one of them things. Anyway, you can get dex or something like that, or I don't know. Spend a lot of the time on a hot roof might use con instead of strength. So, fort saves versus exhaustion.
Yeah, you start with thatching lore and 5 doses of sunscreen.
And like resistance 5 versus slashing, considering you ever tried to handle thatch.
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, modern shingling isn't all that much better.
Oh no. Especially because it's way heavier.
And it'll chew up your knees real bad. Yeah, I like the new backgrounds. I like how they're set up. I like that if you wanted to make a new one, what they give you is simplistic and formulaic enough that you could just be like, this, and this, and you're done. And you could just call it whatever you want, so long as it feels thematically correct.
Yeah.
I also like that it gives you an out for the age-old question of, like, what were you doing before first level? It's like, well, I was in jail, or I was with the clergy, or I lived in the woods and I talked to deer, if you're an animal whisperer.
Or you lived on the farm. And I think it's interesting. It's actually the farmhand background is probably one of the best backgrounds, because if you're taking a fighter or a monk and you take farmer, you get assurance on the skill feat athletics, which with the way those play, it would behoove you mechanically to take it, and it's thematic.
Remember that assurance is a result of 10, 20, or 30, not a roll of 10, 20, or 30.
Right, but as some like the build that I worked on,
I know, but that was Adam's problem with it the first time we read it.
Yeah, I thought it was you rolled that and then you added all your modifiers. I'm like, no, that's way too strong. But I actually have assurance on it because at low levels, assurance is not super awesome. It's a higher level feat, and I'm not really sure. We can talk about that when we get to the feat section. But there are some feats that should not be low level, like Battle Medic and Assurance.
Why not?
Battle Medic, you can literally not roll that unless you get like a 17. Like if you take it at first level, you have to roll a 20.
You can critically succeed.
Yeah, you could critically succeed. I can roll a 20. It's only a
20.
5% chance.
Yeah.
5%, yeah.
Well, there shouldn't be anything stopping you from doing that. You're just bad at building characters then.
No, because you can't. The highest you can get is a +4 on your roll, and you are taking a positive of nothing at first level, regardless if you're trained in it or not. So
I mean, it's +1 for proficiency if you're trained in it at first level.
So you have a
5.
You have a quarter of the time you could. Well, actually, 50% of the time you could do it. No, a quarter of the time you could do it, and then if you roll below that too far, if you roll a 10, if your result is a 10, which is, I'm not doing the math right now, but it's really, if you roll less than that, there is a failure thing to it. You can hurt somebody with medicine and Battle Medic if you're not careful.
Don't roll bad then. Just roll good all the time.
No. That's what the assurance is for. That's what the assurance is for. Because then if you take it at like 8th or 10th level with assurance, then it's worth investing in, because you can say, I want to invoke assurance, and you automatically get those hit points to that person that needs them.
Well, I like that feat, but we're not talking about feats right now. So we'll come back to that later.
Fine. We'll see it in action later on.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think both Cashew and Bradley have it.
I also have
Wait,
it.
What was the feat again?
Combat Medic.
Battle Medic.
Oh, sorry, Battle Medic.
I had to read that thing like several times trying to figure out.
Just to talk about skills super quick, I like that they made medicine, or to quote first edition, heal, not garbage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that you can actually give people hit points back.
That's
nice. Be like, oh yeah, you're fucked up, dude. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'll patch you up
I
so
can
you
stop
don't.
you from bleeding to death, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh shit! Just walk away.
Yeah.
I'm not a healer. Goodbye.
We'll put a Band-Aid on that.
I'm basically useless for this.
Yeah.
Put a Band-Aid on that. It'll be fine.
You want me to hit it? God, it's gonna be up.
But yeah, as far as the backgrounds go, they also give you a skill feat. They give you a feat. It's not necessarily a skill feat. but they give you a feat at.
That's nice and thematic.
Yeah, and the feats are a little more vague because they're not necessarily all general feats or all skill feats, because the Entertainer gives you a Bard class feat.
Wait, what?
And Entertainer, the free feat you get from the background Entertainer is Fascinating Performance.
Fascinating performance. It's a skill feat, technically.
It is, but it's really only useful to you if you're a Bard.
Well, not necessarily, because they do talk about fascinating performance also being for the gladiator. So if you're in like a any kind of performance is what it goes for, including a preaching or a oration or anything like that.
Oh man, I wish the soapbox preachers on white were that interesting.
Well, build one who wins.
I will say that there are some that are going to shine a lot better for certain campaigns, mainly Sailor for water campaigns.
Yes.
Because Underwater Marauder is going to be a necessity unless if you were going anywhere near a boat-styled campaign.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like that kind of goes without saying. If you're playing Skull and Shackles, or what's the Aslanti aquatic adventure path that just came out?
Rise of Aslant or something?
Rise of Aslant. Like if your whole party focuses around being good in the water, like you're gonna have a much better time than if you build a traditional character.
Mm-hmm. And it's a strong feat.
We definitely, when I was playing as much of Skull and Shackles as we ended up playing, I was playing a lizard folk with the aquatic, or not the amphibious subtype, and I did a lot better during most of the combat than the rest of the crew.
Yeah. All right. There's several of them. There's Scholar, Laborer, Hunter, Street Urchin, which is nice if you want to have somebody who lived on the streets and got pickpocket skill feat, which is not a bad feat, and also wanted to be trained in underworld lore. I think, isn't it the iconic Paladin who has the Street Urchin background?
Yes, I can't think of her name now.
Sela.
Sela, yeah, she was a street urchin in some large city whose name also escapes me until she stole the helmet of a traveling paladin.
Oh, probably Magnamar or something like that, with how much they love Varisia.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could have a paladin with a pickpocket skill feat. I mean, he'd not use it a lot, probably, but could use it. It'd still be useful.
Use the pickpocketing to, like, secretly give people coins.
Possibly.
Ooh, random acts of secret kindness.
Yeah, that's very Black Butterfly. Wade would love that.
Well, I mean, sometimes you just need to take people's shit. It's not about good or evil. Sometimes you just need to take people's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, say that evil noble that you know is evil and is abusing the law, which is against the tenets, has lied in court, and the only thing that you can do to get proof is to pickpocket him. That might be something.
Well, see, there you go. You pickpocket him. That's not lawful good, and you fall from grace in first edition. But in second edition,
tiers.
Don't have to be lawful good. There you go. Ba-doom chow, poo rim shot, ba-ding cha.
It is not nearly like that. Thank you very much. That depends on your GM and how crotchety they are.
So we've talked about backgrounds here for a bit. Do we want to move on to languages?
Yes, languages now. Okay. In short, we like the backgrounds, like having them. Languages are pretty cool. I like that they give you. A few tables of average languages. I did think it was what race was it? There was a race in here. Oh, I can't find it right off the top of my head. Right off the top.
It's in there somewhere.
What I really liked is that they changed giant to Jotun.
I think it was a good idea to change it because just calling it giant didn't encompass the number of races that spoke it.
Yeah, and it really, like, where a lot of their lore surrounding giants come from is from the Eddas.
Yeah, it's from
So calling it by its
Norse
Futhark.
Yeah, for the same reason that Sylvan makes sense for for Fey creatures.
Also, Jotun's just a cooler word.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Jotun.
Oh, and they changed Undercommon. Well, no, not Undercommon.
No,
Never mind.
Undercommon's still language.
No, I was looking at Shadow Tongue, and I just was like, that should be the name for Undercommon, though. I feel like Undercommon is...
It should.
It's
I
kind of-
also agree. Shadow Tongue should be the new Undercommon.
Well, then
Yeah.
what would you call the tongue of the plane of shadow?
I Bumblebees.
Bumblebee.
Umbral.
Bumblebees!
That Umbral actually works. Umbral?
But they already have a term called umbral, so
So
I
there's
mean-
an Umbral dragon, and then people speak
Words can have more than one meaning, Adam.
Yeah.
they can. But when you get rules lawyers saying, I speak umbral, things can get hairy.
Well, I can't help
If
it.
someone-
If someone
If
doesn't,
someone argues,
someone doesn't know what a pun is, then
Penumbran.
Penumbral? I don't know.
So, yeah.
some other language that means shadowy. You could call it tenebrous. I speak tenebrous.
All right. But the languages, other than a few changes like those, they've stayed pretty much the same. It's good that they
Yeah.
have a table here for newer GMs and DMs that are like, well, who speaks Gnomish and automatically, and what about
Who's-
Goblin?
Gnomes.
Well, yeah, and just gnomes on that one. But if they say like, well, what about Sylvan? Who's going to speak Sylvan? Like, I don't know. Well, plant creatures speak Sylvan. Centaurs speak Sylvan, and Fae speak Sylvan.
Oh, I'm gonna have to keep that in mind. Plant creatures and fae and centaurs. Well, not fae,
I
but
like-
centaurs and plant creatures.
I like that they added Necrol.
Yeah,
Well, it was in first edition too.
that's what it was. Yeah, but
Yeah,
nobody
but I
ever
like
talked
that they
about
made
it.
I like that they made that more prominent because I really didn't know Necrol until I really got deep into it. I like that they made it an actual like necromancer tongue. Also, I like that there's a separate language for gnolls as well. I don't know why exactly. I just like it. I like that there's more language because I feel
that
like
it's not just bundled in with abyssal or something like it was before.
Wasn't it
Yeah.
Echo?
I liked when they separated out languages and you're able to get more diversity. And not everyone's just like, no problems here. Everyone speaks common, right? Yeah, we're good. All right, slap hands. Let's go. Like, let's fight them. Oh, he thinks that you just said, I'm going to stab your mother. Oh, well, do you speak like that's? I feel like that's a lot more realistic, and I feel like that's a bit more fun when you have language barriers.
Yeah, as you will notice if you watch A House Divided.
Yeah,
Plug,
no
plug,
one can
plug.
speak English.
No one but Randy speaks English.
Oh, and Volka does, but he had a stroke. He's just like, man, let's go piss off some evil dudes.
Fair.
So what I want to say about the languages is I like that they made the fact that sign language exists
Yes.
more prominent. But my problem with it is that they have a different sign language for every language. When if you compare that to how we look at sign language here, there's basically like 4 or 5 different forms of sign language, and there's overlap in those real world forms of sign language. So to have 20 different versions of sign language seems kind of pedantic.
Yeah.
I think it kind of fits in. Like, the reason we have so few, I think, I'm postulating here,
Mhm.
in the real world, is because there are just some places where it's like, make a sign language for someone. Like, if you're deaf and you're living in some terrible, terrible place where, like, survival is always, like, paramount, if you're deaf, you're not really going to survive for very long in these third world countries. So developing a sign language, unless you live near a like some sort of metropolitan area where people can teach you ASL or ESL is useful, but in some places it's really not. So I think that development is really relegated to first world countries. Now in this, there's far more. It's like every place is almost. I'm trying to dance around my words here.
Well, I feel like what you said. Sorry, go ahead.
There's magic that basically allows places to have a bit more loose interpretation of things. Sometimes there's not as much survival going on here. I guess that's how I interpret it. So people have time. You have scholars, even in the lowest of society, who are able to create sign languages for their peoples. And yes, I understand that we're not just talking about deaf people here, because in Frank Herbert's Dune, there's a battle language of the Atreides, and it's a sign language. Depending on which.
I mean, you know more about Dune than anybody else in this chat, obviously.
I would like to think I do.
You are a Dune aficionado.
I am.
I watched the show once. I've watched the show a few times.
I've seen Dune.
I've seen the movie. I know something. No, I don't know. Sting was in it.
Sting was.
I was going to say that I feel like that sign languages would really only develop around those metropolitan areas, like you said. But I can see what you're getting at here, that since then there's a lot with the introduction of things like magic and just the fact that we're in a fantasy setting, there is definitely a notion that any tier of society or any part of the planet could develop a form of sign language.
Well, I would dispute that a little bit, because even in the real world, there have been tribes that have developed sign language, especially if prominent members of the tribes have been deaf.
Well, also, I would like to point out again that they also would develop a sign language as a battle language.
I was actually just going to get to that again, to agree with you that if you had a party of people that knew sign language, and there's actually, I think, a feat for cavaliers that does just that, which is like a battle language or a sign language for like communicating with other people while you're like in cover or in hiding, or just there's so much other noise going on that you can't reliably talk to each other, that you're just throwing up like, I don't know, SWAT signals to each other.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's kind of silly to have so many, like Kane said, it's pedantic to have so many, because when you would come to the connectivity that comes with magic, especially overland magic like that, and communication, that's really what revolutionizes the different modes and diplomacy and stuff like that, and interconnectivity of cultures is communication. It's not necessarily technology level. So a magic level can make up for technology level in the way we see it.
Well, I suppose it could also be dependent upon who developed sign language first. Because if you're developing sign language from the ground up, and you're like, well, these people already have a working sign language, why don't I just steal gratuitously from that? And like your sign language would be different in its own way, but there would also be like very significant portions of overlap. So you would sort of end up with like regional dialects in heavy air quotations for your sign language.
Yeah. I like that in their core book here, their core rules, right away, they talk about regional languages. That's also something that Joe is probably happy about. Yes. Because Halit, Kelish, Mwangi, every time I see Mwangi, I want to say Mwangi, because I'm expecting there to be a comma to make it a click thing, but it's not.
I think it's actually an exclamation point, is how you write the click.
I've seen it a couple ways, but I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. I don't speak Xhosa.
Yeah. Assyrian, Sionti, Skull, Tien, Varisian, Varun, Vudrani. And then it gives you the places that those are common. So if you are new to the Inner Sea region, or even if you're not, you can just use this as a reference. What's going to be spoken here? And there you go. So they should put Orc in Belkazin, but I don't think they had that option anyway. But that's languages.
Okay, so we're fine. We're getting into chapter 3 now.
Chapter 3, classes.
Chapter 3, classes. So the classes they've reintroduced to 2nd edition Pathfinder for us is the Alchemist, which is now base, the Barbarian, the Bard, the Cleric, the Druid, the Fighter, the Paladin, the Ranger, the Rogue, the Sorcerer, and the Wizard.
And the
You missed the monk.
How did I miss the Monk?
You didn't go
With
all the
the
way to
fighter,
the
We
end.
also wondered.
I said Fighter. What do you mean it didn't go all the way to the end? It's an alphabetical order. Monk would be in the middle, not after Wizard.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
I
you
got it
didn't say
recorded, man.
Fighter and Paladin.
You
I
sassed
said
me.
Fighter, Monk, Paladin,
Nope.
Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer,
You did not say
Wizard.
monk.
I did.
Nope.
No.
None of us
Okay.
heard you say
You want to put money on it?
I'm not
It's
drunk.
super
You're
smart,
drunk.
my dude.
Anyway, yeah, I like them. I am okay with the Alchemist being core.
Wait, oh, don't whine him.
Eh.
Don't-
You're
How
just
are you
upset
not
that
a-
I can play one.
I told you it resets. You can play one now anytime you
No,
want to.
I'm not doing it now.
See, just being,
Contrarian.
yeah. I like
I
that they
mean,
gave
sometimes-
them little symbols. I think that's just me liking that they gave them something like that. But
I
It's
appreciate
aesthetic.
all the visual shorthand that occurs in the 2nd edition so far.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say something, Liam? No?
I was just agreeing on that point.
Okay.
there you go.
First,
Thank you.
I would like to just point out that I like that the classes point out, or like that your classes affect your ability stats.
Your key ability.
That's something that I
Yeah.
like.
And some of them are modular, like the fighter you can pick between strength or dexterity,
the monk
yeah.
as well.
that sort of thing. If depending on the kind of combatant you're going towards. So you have your key abilities, which give you your final, your C and your ABCs, your final +2 to stats.
Yeah.
And well, let's just go through how they describe classes really here. So we've done the key ability. The next thing is hit points, which now advance at a steady rate, the same as the way they did it in Starfinder, which debuted with Starfinder, but is also like, if I'm going to reference another Pathfinder Dungeons & Dragons product, is the sort of thing you saw show up initially in 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, is standardized health increments.
Which I am okay with.
Yeah, I like that.
I understand that some people are like, let's roll for hit points. Like, Critical Role still does that for their hit points, and I'm like, every time they do it, I'm like, no, I don't like that. Because you could get a 1.
I do it for
See, one of my guys actually advocates for the potential 1, which I hate.
Nah.
Well, I don't advocate for the potential 1. The reason it's in a game that's not going to be recorded, but I have a Dune D20 game that's being run, and they roll. Hoggy's in it, Liam, and
Levi.
they roll.
Levi.
Levi, sorry, I don't know why I said Liam.
Yeah, I almost said Liam too.
Critical Role.
The reason they roll is because really hit points don't matter in for the most part. I'm not going to get into that, but like it's also just the fact that like rolling in it. I don't know. I like to live on the edge, and I like my players to live on the edge.
Yeah. Well,
And so when you roll a 1, you're like, crap. It's like, I don't know. I like my players to play smarter. And if you're playing like the tanky guy and you roll a 1, it's like, yeah, stop tanking. Like, the CRs have increased, and you haven't been able to keep up with them.
right, but if you're
So,
a fighter and you roll 3-1, you roll on your level ups 3 times and get a 1 each time, it only takes maybe 1 or 2 of those to really set a fighter back in his ability to
Yeah. And
to tank.
okay, then I'll get into the Dune D20 system. Poisons and las guns are basically going to kill you instantly, no matter what. Most poisons are going to do like 4d6 con damage to you, and las guns are going to do like 20d8 damage to you because they are literal doom weapons. The las guns are in the Dune universe. And if you're wearing a shield and someone shoots you, Lord help everyone in a few mile radius. Because there's going to be a subatomic fusion event and it's going to kill everything. That's the reason why we...
So always have a shield on so that if they shoot you, they die too.
You and everyone in a 3 mile radius.
Yeah.
That's what the party does.
Yeah. There's I can definitely see the precedent for it in like a more like politically or RP driven game, or just in a game where you're playing people who aren't inherently heroic. But if you're playing in a game where you're supposed to be, I don't know, I use the term inherently heroic, but you know what I mean, where you're supposed to be sturdy and stalwart, and you're the main characters of the story. But like that's the precedent you set for having a reliable, consistent hit point pool. Like the barbarian has to be able to take more punishment than the sort of thing. Your marshals are there specifically to stand front and center, take the hit, and give it back.
Yeah, but that's hit points, and we don't roll for hit points. We have standard hit points, which I'm a fan of as far as that goes. As someone who studied biology, it's a lot less random how strong and sturdy your body is than people like to give it credit for. Your DNA behaves in certain ways. So anyway, that's just me. Proficiencies are next, which are, I'm not sure that I like that there's no other way to get up to legendary or something like that if you really wanted to, unless you have something in that is a proficiency for your class.
I hate it.
So yeah, the advancing past expert proficiency in skills, they have to be signature skills, which I think makes sense because that's something that your class is archetypally good at.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense in the proficiencies, but I don't think it makes sense overall. Okay,
so you guys, or maybe I should go first because you guys will argue it and I'll be like, I agree. I like the way proficiencies are set up. I think that... Oh, dear, Adam. Ooh.
Rude!
You muted the recording. Well, then no one should talk. No, okay, no, sorry. Yeah, you're editing your part of the recording. Sorry, I thought you were muting the entire recording so that nothing that was going on was being recorded. That's what I thought.
No, now they can hear me again.
Okay, I like the proficiencies. I like that like fighters and barbarians, and I think monks, like your core marshals, are the only people that become legendary and masters in their respective wheelhouse of weapons. I think that's in class. That's what they should be doing. I don't think that your clerics or your wizards or sorcerers or your non-core marshals should be as good with weapons as your fighters and barbarians and monks are. Like that sort of defeats the purpose of the martial focus in that class.
Well,
I think that there should be more ways to get signature skills. Because I think if you're playing a fighter who wants to be a combat medic, or if you're playing a whatever that wants to specialize in this specific field of training, there should be like a class feat or a general feat or something that makes that a signature skill for you. And there are some feats that do that, but I don't think there's one for everything.
I don't think they make them signature skills. I think they make you trained in them. Is that correct?
Yeah, there are some that make it a signature skill for you.
Okay.
And there's so in the character that I'm prepping for Lordly Caliber, switching into second edition, I really want him to be an Intimidate master. I want him to use the Scared to Death feat, which sounds really fun. But I think only barbarians have Intimidate as a signature skill.
I think
So
if
I can't.
you can take the half orc ancestry feat can give you intimidate as a signature skill.
Okay, but I don't want to be a half orc.
Well, just then take it and say you're not a half orc. It's a role playing.
You could say you're part Jotun.
I'm gonna argue that up and down, and maybe Tommy would argue with me, but he's not here to defend himself. But
yeah, Tommy.
I will argue up and down that like if the flavor of a mechanical option does not match up with the flavor you're looking for, just change the flavor.
Yeah, that works. The thing though is, I don't like the signature skills, and I think signature skills should be a bit more optimized, or not optimized, but customizable, in that you would just like. You can choose 3 skills from this list. I think there should be more variation in skills. Like a fighter can take acrobatics, athletics, and
one other. It's probably
crafting for fighter.
Yeah,
crafting. Ugh. I don't know. Actually, that makes sense. But like, yeah, no, I totally agree. That's something like signature skills. Like, if it gave you like 3, or maybe if you're like a rogue or a bard, like 5 or something, like more.
Yeah,
I don't just like pick this many, and here are your signature skills, and here are like the things you as a character are really good at.
Well, yeah. Seeing how prominent they're trying to make skills.
All this customization.
Yeah, seeing how prominent they're trying to make skills. I don't think any class should have 3 skills to start out with. I think they should have 4 to 5 signature skills. Because if they don't, all of those skill feats you get, I mean, your fighters are going to be doing basically the same skills, which is something that you... And we're talking about fighters that have taken feats. We're talking about, fighters that have gotten to whatever level you want to throw out there, say 10th level. That's going to be like 3 skill feats. You get 5, they're all going to be the same for most of your fighters because they only get 3 skills that they can technically become.
Yeah, I know, and Monk does the same thing. The Monk's only signature skills are acrobatics, athletics, and religion.
Yeah. And they should get like occult also because it mentions occult in there.
And like Bradley's not even trained in religion.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's a master in athletics, and I've definitely taken like a bunch of the skill feats for athletics. So I have like powerful leap and wall jump and quick climb. So I've spent all of his skill feats, but they're all really focused into the same kind of thing. Like he is parkour master. He can navigate terrain really well, but that's
he's a spry little dwarf.
Wheelhouse.
A real spry little dwarf.
He's a real spry dwarf. He's real fast. He likes to run around and heal fast because he's got a robust recovery, and he's got the battle medic, so he runs around and he stitches you.
Yeah. I think they give you... I'm not sure they give you enough skill increases either, based upon...
Every 5 levels?
Every 5 levels.
5, 10, 15, and 20?
Third, second, third, and every 2 thereafter.
Yeah.
So,
skill increases. Sorry.
Yeah, skill increases,
yeah.
not ability boosts or stuff like that.
I internalized that as ability score increases.
Yeah, just skill increases.
I think every other level is fine.
It's enough to get 3 things up to legendary by level 20.
Yeah, and that's kind of my... You have...
I think that's fine, though, because that's still 3 things that, like, I'm better than fucking everyone else on the planet at this.
Yeah, so
that's more than an Olympic athlete has. Olympic athletes who win gold medals. I just flipped off the camera. Sorry. Olympic athletes who have a gold medal are like, I'm better than everyone in the world at one thing. One thing. You get 3.
Well, no. To be fair, we're not. These Olympic athletes are comparing to mythical. At 20th level, you're mythical at stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at 15th level, you are technically mythical at one thing. Every Olympic athlete is 15th level. Not acrobat, but
no, they're more like 7th.
Athletics.
Athletics. They have 15th level athletics skill because they are legendary at something. you could make the case for them being like 8th or 10th.
Fucking legend.
Because they can get master. But all that said, the skill increases, if you are a bard, you're not going to get enough skill increases to get the things that you might want up to legendary. If you're a fighter or a monk or something like that only gets 3 skills, guess where all of your skill things need to go if you want to be legendary at anything.
Well, okay, that's a fair point, but also the only difference between master and legendary is +1 and qualifying for a fistful of feats.
That's fair now, but later in the full game.
Yeah, later when you're 20th level, that's still like, if you're not trained in something, you're still limited to the actions in that skills section on what untrained actions are. Yeah. So just by becoming trained in that skill, you gain more versatility, both in not taking a negative and qualifying for a bunch of feats, but also in just being allowed to perform certain actions with that feat. Which makes sense, because if you don't know anything about Arcana or Occultism or whatever, like you're not going to have enough familiarity with the field to perform certain actions. Same with Survival or Thievery or any of the other things. But, like, being a master qualifies you for 80% of feats, or all of them in some cases, which will obviously expand as there are more books and product put out for 2nd edition. But being legendary really only qualifies you for the legendary insert skill name here feat, and the additional +1 you get. Like, that's all that does.
That's fair, but I believe there's going to be challenges that are set up that will be put into games that only legendary people in certain skills can handle. I didn't look it up.
In what way, though?
Like,
I should say, signature skills only, like, you can only get up to expert unless it's signature. You can't get up to master.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Is you can only advance to legendary if it's in a signature skill. But what I'm saying is the difference between being a master in something and being legendary in something is the +1 and qualifying for some feats. But yes, the difference between being an expert in something and being a legendary in something is more significant, just based upon the number of feats you would qualify for or have access to. But mechanically, just like math-wise, is not that different.
Right, it's not the math that I'm particularly worried about, because I'm with you on that. It's only a +1. Unless you're going for the legendary in something feat, there's really no reason to put it in there. But I don't think that's going to be the case in the final version. So in the final version, they would probably need to increase the amount of stuff you can do. Because imagine being a rogue and being able to do a lot of different stuff, but you can't do a lot of it as, like, you get all the skills, basically. And you only get, like, 10 skill points to put into anything, which means you may be master at 10 things if you spread it out.
And that sounds like a bard to me.
Yeah.
Jack
yeah,
of
that's
all
not
trades,
a bard.
master of 10.
That's a rogue.
Yeah. Master of most.
Yeah, I guess.
I
think there's you're like, we're putting a little too much importance on skills. Like, skills are better now, but they're not amazing. They're not literally magic.
I don't know.
You can't survive in vacuum. We had this argument already. The blog post was a typo.
Okay, but you can restore hit points.
With the medicine skill, yes.
Yes, which means they do affect combat. They are going to affect combat, so I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the be-all, end-all of Pathfinder. We're not playing a Napoleonic war game. Like, we're doing things other than killing monsters.
Which skills also do.
Well, yes, but also does magic. I don't know what point I'm trying to make here. I'm just saying that skills are.
You don't know your point, man. Come on.
I don't. I just there's a lot of whiskey in this Boilermaker.
I'm
just saying that like
when you're not master. When you're a legendary at intimidation, you essentially cast a save die spell on people. Like, yeah, skills are kind of feat. Like, not skills. Skills are kind of turning into spells.
Yeah. Legendary skills, even master level skills, can be have spell-like abilities.
How are you? Okay, two things I want to say really quick. A, how are you casting a save or die with legendary medicine?
1 second.
Oh, legendary intimidation.
Oh, scared to death. That's yeah. Sure. So legendary intimidation, not legendary medicine. And B, shit. What was I gonna say? Dang it!
Feats are magic.
Feats are magic. Magic are feats.
Skills.
No, oh yeah, I remember now. What I was going to say is I want to apologize to everyone watching this. We have completely skipped classes and gone straight to skills.
Yeah, we kind of have. We
got stuck in signature skills.
Skills, which are a discussion.
We were sidetracked by a diatribic.
We also get, I think we get enough ability boosts. I'm satisfied. You can get something to 20, and then do that. I will say they did not get rid of the big 6 like they said they were. They're just not the same as they were, which I'm not super thrilled about. I mean, if you say you're going to get rid of them, get rid of them. But
okay. Well, with how much time we've spent on skills, do you guys just want to skip to chapter 4 and we'll do classes next week?
Hold on, let me see. Well, we're at 52 minutes right now, so we wouldn't be able to finish skills anyway.
Well, yeah, we'll just talk more about skills, and we'll call that finished, because I don't want to go through acrobatics, arcana, athletics, crafting, deception, diplomacy, intimidate, lore, medicine, nature, occultism, performance, society, stealth, survival, and thievery, like, individually. We'll just talk about skills in general.
I can get us down to skills, and we can continue to talk about it. I still think there's a lot of discussion to be had about skills. I think some skills are going to be better than others, which is usual. But,
yeah, I mean, that's some of the skills are just more niche. Like lore is going to be incredibly niche, just because every class basically gets like one lore that is really esoteric in nature.
Yeah.
A lot of the times. I mean, some people you would talk to, Donald, you would try to optimize your lore for as many situations as possible, but there's still going to be a lot of people who have like we were talking
farming.
About being like farming or being a thatcher or like entertainment lore or like any of the other things you're going to get from your background that are like lore in this very specific thing.
Well, I'd politic that if you have lore farming, you could do some nature-y type of checks, for more information on that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of me. Okay, so we're at skills, skill uses, the skill DCs. They're definitely scaling with, they're literally scaling with levels, so you're not gonna... Having an ability modifier in it is not nearly as important as just being a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But that's with everything in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So...
There's also only a fistful of skills that have actions that don't have actions you can only perform if you're trained. And that's diplomacy, intimidate, and stealth, which do not have actions you can only do when you're trained. Every other skill has some kind of action, again, you can only do when you're trained.
Right. Which it kind of makes sense for stealth. I'm not so sure about diplomacy or intimidation. It might have been nice for them to have something.
Are even tied to combat maneuvers.
Athletics.
Yeah, you can only disarm. You can only perform the disarm action if you're trained in athletics. You can perform the feint action if you're trained in deception.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how to feel about the tie of athletics to your grappling and your ability to do it. I understand.
Well, because they don't have
why.
CMD anymore, CMB and CMD anymore. Like they threw out that awful broken grapple system from 3.5. That's why.
Right. But again, but I'm not sure I like this one better necessarily, and that might be me being burned by grappling in 5th edition, because it's you can't build to grapple in 5th edition and get anything, because they base so much around advantage that you're just not gonna do as well as you could in other systems. Your athletics is going to be fine to use because it scales with level, so you're always going to have a challenge if you're fighting things of appropriate level as you.
Well, and there's certainly also like feats are both more powerful and more specific, I guess, in 2E from what it looks like. Because if I look at the monk that I have built here, he's got a bunch of things that are built around athletics and certain maneuvers. And dwarves specifically have an ancestry feat called Mountain Roots, which is very similar, and as far as I can tell, stacks with the monk Mountain Root stance.
I was reading that and I was like, do those stack? It doesn't say they don't.
Which is
it's looking pretty great.
Yeah, exactly. Which would make them very difficult to trip and very difficult to shove. Which I'm in 1st edition. I'm assuming shove is basically bull rush.
Kind of.
You don't have to move with them.
Yeah. Well, you don't. I don't think you have to move with the bull rush.
You push them away, or they get a choice. You can push them away, or they'll fall down. If they're up against a wall, they always fall down.
Yeah. And there's definitely, well, not with disarm. I don't know why that's a trained. Well, I see why that's a trained thing. Never mind.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like a tie-in with athletics and being really good at knocking people around and manhandling them, and like vice versa, not being knocked around and not being manhandled.
Right. I think it makes athletics a very, very strong skill, if you'll pardon the joke.
Well, I mean, and I like that because it feels like a lot, especially in 1st edition. I think Joe will back me up on this, that strength doesn't get a lot of love outside of specifically just hitting people really hard.
Yeah, and intimidating people. I always hated how much dexterity was favored. I felt like it was broken, and it made everyone into little noodle arm boys running around. It's like, the world is ruled by the little flexible armed people. Like, what is going on? Like,
little spaghetti boys.
Is this supposed to be like an allegory for medieval warfare? Because if you're a little spaghetti boy, but usually you would shit your pants whenever a big old dude in armor came around the corner.
Yeah, when Sander Clegane or Halfdor Bjornsson came over the hill on their horse with their 12-foot bastard sword, you were dead.
Yeah, you're just like, well, I can sharpen a stick and put it in the ground. Maybe they won't get to me.
Yeah.
That's when you get your other boys behind you who have armor, and you're like, go fight the boys in armor, please.
My boys, go fight those boys.
Yeah.
It's a boy fight.
Also, don't look up spaghetti boy on Urban Dictionary.
Now people are going and looking up Urban Dictionary.
I mean, go. Boy. That's the ploy, isn't it?
Squeeze is a lot heftier tax on your movement now.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to fight someone while stuck in an elevator door? Well, now you can experience what that's really like. It's awful.
I am very apprehensive for Gugfest 2019 because
I quit.
That Squeeze, man.
I quit for another Gugfest. I don't care how badly the Gugs are gibbed by being stuck inside their specially manicured death chamber.
Well, the Gugs will probably get Squeeze. As a, artful squeeze or whatever it is. I don't know.
Artful squeeze?
I don't know. Squeeze me. Come on and squeeze me like you do. Okay. I'm glad that crafting is a lot broader now. Because you can craft anything you got a formula for, basically. Anything you've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
the blueprints for, you can craft it. So that's nice. That makes it a lot less niche.
Yeah, I hated picking, like, being like, oh, I want to be, you know, a generalized blacksmith. And it's, well, a generalized weapons man. It's like, alright, I need weapons, I need bows, I need armor. To build your build-all martial.
Yeah. I think it's nice that you can craft anything that you want to craft that is basically with a blueprint. Diplomacy and intimidation, I would have liked to, like I said, gotten some more, something that they could do as a trained individual. Because gathering information, making an impression, and making a request with diplomacy, I mean, that's okay. It's not like it's bad, but they could have gotten something like public presentation or something like that. You know, something that would allow them to have something to do outside of that. Intimidation, the same. Intimidation might have had like a downtime activity where they could set up things that would demoralize the opponents if they were setting, you know, like in the same way that a ranger would set up traps, they would set up
Like propaganda.
yeah. Like, yeah, if diplomacy and intimidation got their each type of propaganda. So diplomacy
That sounds like fun.
diplomacy could propagandize positively or negatively necessarily, just depends. And then intimidation could basically propagandize also, but to give a static bonus. Like if your group had a fort or a base or something like that was theirs, then you could use an intimidation check to basically craft a demoralizing totem of some kind that would be there.
Bloody.
Yeah. So there you go. That's kind of my thing on that one. You can. I like that lore at least lets you practice a trade because it is so niche. With it being so niche, you're going to need some kind of balance for that. So practicing a trade is as close as you're going to probably get. We get a lot of feedback from you, Levi.
I mean, most of the time it's because I, generally speaking, agree.
I meant from your mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misheard you. I thought you said weren't getting on. Okay, sorry.
We both are and are not getting a lot of feedback from you, Eli.
Yeah.
Levi.
Your microphone has a lot to say.
No. But yeah, Levi and I think that intimidation and diplomacy should get a propaganda option on their trained use, Kane.
I can see that for diplomacy. I don't know about intimidation. I feel like intimidation isn't really like a long-term ploy.
Well, I set it up like you had a base or you had a home area that was yours, and you set up like intimidating totems and intimidating
Or you make
propaganda.
Like you spare an enemy. Like next time I see you, I'm going to put your hands under a cart and run him over several times. Then you send him running to his friends, and they learn about it.
Yeah.
That would be intimidating propaganda. In my
Yeah, I
opinion.
suppose that's
I also
very
yours.
Batman.
Very Batman.
Yeah.
I'm Helmut.
Yeah, I'm waiting on that to come through. I'm Helmut.
I don't know what to give stealth, honestly, as far as what you would do to do something trained with it.
Conceal an object, hide,
And
or
sneak.
sneak.
I mean,
That's pretty much the only thing I could think would for trained would be like hide a person, like hide a non-object.
smuggle?
Smuggle,
Hide a body.
yeah. Hide a body. Would be like the only trained usage of stealth I can think is to hide things other than yourself or things you're hide something that isn't a thing.
Oh yeah, avoid the authorities with stealth. You expertly are, if you are trained in stealth and you take this activity, you are expertly able to erase evidence of your crime. That would be cool.
But I think
Yeah.
that like that specifically is also a feat. I think that they should just take that feat and make it the trained usage of the skill stealth.
There is some of that, yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure they talk about group stealth in the feats as being like you roll stealth for everyone, kind of the way we were doing it in Rise of the Rune Lords, where Magpie would roll stealth using Gideon's armor check failure.
Yeah, we were using that group stealth mechanic.
Or armor check penalty, not failure. Because it was basically like Magpie micromanaging how everyone else snuck around.
Yeah.
And trying to combat how clanky and clumsy Gideon was.
And he could do it too.
Oh yeah, I was hella good at sneaking.
I like that at least the book does give you a very detailed talk about the skills and what they do.
Oh yeah.
It does a good job explaining those things, and that's good. That's good. I think that it's probably good that you have to be trained in medicine to treat a disease or to treat a poison. That's probably a good idea. I might have even verged over and said, nature should be able to treat poison as well, but I understand.
I feel like, nature would be treating specific types of poison.
Yeah.
You'd be like treating snake bites and like poison ivy and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think we touched on this already, but I like that perform can be for any performance, basically.
Yeah, that's why I have Cashew buying new instruments in every city we go to. Because I don't have to take perform strings, perform oratory, perform piano, perform, woodwinds. I can apply his perform check to any instrument I end up buying, whether it's a drum or a squeeze box or a hurdy-gurdy.
I think it's interesting that society trained uses is create forgery and not thievery. So if you are a thief wanting to do that, you need to have society as a skill.
I'm also surprised by that. I would have figured that definitely would have been a thievery thing, maybe not, because it's a linguistics thing in first edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to know how like society would make their legal forms, how this person would sign their stuff.
And society, I suppose, is like the closest equivalent to linguistics.
Linguistics, knowledge local.
Yeah, that's the society's the skill I would group linguistics in with.
Yeah.
I like that survival's trained as covering tracks because I'm a city kid. Like, I know a little bit about camping, but I would have no idea how to cover my own tracks.
Fair. Yes. As far as I can tell, I like that. I wasn't... Lore is probably the one that I think is going to need the most... I don't know, the most creative use, I guess. Because I feel like lore is just not going to get rolled very much.
Again, I think it depends on like how well implemented that lore is. Because if you take Starfinder, for example, Rod effectively had like lore mercenaries or lore military.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up rolling that quite a lot, actually.
Right.
To identify enemy ships, to, I used it in place of, like, the closest skill I can think of would have been, like, knowledge nobility. I used it to, like, identify persons of interest who were involved with the military. Like, it ended up being fairly useful. And I think depending on the kind of campaign you're running, certain lore skills will get rolled a lot.
Right. Well, I mean, as a cleric, you get lore your deity, basically. Yeah. Which can either be really good or absolutely useless.
Yeah, it depends on how much, like, how often iconography and symbolism of your lore shows up.
Right. if you're playing a Serenite in Osirian or someplace like that, or Qadira, you're going to get a lot of lore rolls for your well, possibly, depending on how much it pops up. But if you're a black butterfly servitor, which is not in the playtest, mind you, but if you're a black butterfly servitor in the full game, how often are you going to roll that lore? She literally is a deity of secrets. To not know is her lore. You don't know.
That would be the exact same thing as being a servitor of Norgabur.
Yeah.
A Reaper of Reputation, where, like, if anybody finds out you're a Reaper of Reputation, you have to kill them, or the rest of the Brotherhood will kill you.
Yeah. So,
that lends then to the trained usage of the lore skill, which is to practice a trade. Which, if you farm lore, you're practicing a trade as a farmhand, because you're not practicing a trade using craft anymore, because lore is doubling down as a profession skill.
mm-hmm.
If you have nature lore, you're acting as a tour guide, or not a tour guide, sorry, as a normal guide, as a guide. Through the wilderness or through terrain. If you have military lore, I'm not sure exactly how you're practicing a trade. Maybe as a mercenary
or tactician, like
perhaps,
making battle plans for the local military or whatever forces.
No, exactly, perfect. But like you're using your lore in a way that allows you to practice a trade.
That's what Helmut uses his lore warfare. He was a general, so.
And that's, again, that's going to be good. I just think that there's going to be some lore that gets rolled a lot and some lore that just doesn't get rolled. Because of the nature of the game.
Well, I think that also mimics Profession from First Edition. Because in First Edition, a lot of the Profession skills like either never got rolled or they got rolled a lot. Because if you were in a naval campaign and you had Profession Sailor, you rolled Profession Sailor all the goddamn time. But if you had, I don't know, Profession Underwater Basket Weaving, like that shit never gets rolled. It really depended on like how specifically relevant your Profession skill was. In a military campaign, like Profession Soldier would be really relevant, or Profession Merchant would be really relevant, or Profession I can't
Vampire.
Profession Vampire. I'm a professional vampire.
No, there was a vampire lore though. In this is the only reason I said that. Sorry.
Oh yeah, then you'd be practicing trade as a vampire hunter or something. You know. But let's go play Curse of Strahd,
which I'm actually playing right now. But
is it good? I've heard a lot of weird stuff about it.
It's hard to tell because of how much stuff my GM is throwing in that is not Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, yeah. I know that from Rise of the Rune Lords. So yeah,
and from beginnings and endings, and from everything else.
Well, I mean, I was speaking more specifically to taking the adventure path and then doing whatever you're going to do with it inside.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can do that with anything though. That has been your GMing style in my experience.
I don't like this. I'm changing it.
Here's a base product. Here's all of the shit I'm adding to it.
So It's been good, but I can't tell you how much that is Curse of Strahd.
Oh, well, I mean, it's been good. I'm willing to take that at face value.
Okay.
So, we've hit our time and a little bit over, which is no big deal. I think we've sufficiently talked about backgrounds and skills. Had to bounce around in the book for the viewers. Sorry about that. But if you've got the physical book or the PDF, you can just follow along with us. Final thoughts on skills and backgrounds, starting with Joe.
Final thoughts. I'm pretty neutral on most of it. The thing that I really just did not like, that gave me a bit of a fit, was the signature skills. They need to fix that. I think if they're going to have proficiencies, they need to get rid of the signature skills, or they need to alter it to the point where it's far more customizable. Because I feel like they're just pooping out. Like, if you're a fighter, you're gonna basically look the same as another fighter. Like, I feel like 1E had a bit of an advantage in its customization, and
skill wise,
2E kind of feels like, yeah, skill wise, and I feel like in this you're just kind of like being cookie cuttered, and I don't like that.
Okay. Kane?
I like the skills so far. I will agree with Joseph that I think the signature skills should be re-implemented in a more modular fashion. But I'm on board with the skills, if for no other reason than because there's half as many. And I am all for not having an entire half of a page devoted to skill checks in the way that, like, for Pathfinder, and especially like 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons was, where you had a different skill for every activity. I didn't like that, and I think having the skills simplified down just to where they are is much better.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going up on our channel or Tommy's channel?
I guess it'll go up on ours since Tommy's not here.
All right, so maybe we should repost it on his so someone at Paizo actually sees this.
Paizo.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Paizo. I
Ouch.
hashtag Paizo every time, and we're getting 300-something views on these things sometimes.
Well, that's because we're talking about second edition, my man.
Yeah.
yeah.
So there you go, Paizo. Pay attention.
We're not
Okay.
we're not PC enough for Paizo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
All
dog,
right.
did you fart? Jesus.
Okay.
It wasn't me.
We're not.
It wasn't me.
He's-
This is dog.
Oh,
Okay.
Jesus Christ!
There we go. There we go. There's all the profanity. All right, Levi. What did you final thoughts on backgrounds and skills?
Backgrounds in general good. I think being able to practice a profession with lore will help a lot of the main problems with it. There are still some issues in there, but not too big of a deal. So there's a thing that I really like that for just half a second, just know that in the spells there are things called rituals, and you're good at the magic knowledge skills to use them, and I really like that.
Good to know. Good to know.
We'll discuss it in more detail at a later time.
Yes, that will be in the spells section, which we are not going to go through every single spell when we get there.
Oh, dear God, no.
That would be bad. That would take forever. That'd be worse than the CR discussions. Alright, my final thoughts on backgrounds. I like the backgrounds. They're a very solid start. They behave well, and they're customizable, and they are reflavorable in a very quick and easy fashion. As far as the skills go, I also will echo most of what was said today. I like that that there's fewer of them. I like that they're condensed. I even like that lore has been condensed. It's one of those things where there's going to be lores that are rolled all the time and lores that aren't rolled at all, and being able to practice a trade with one is good. That is good. So, kudos on that. I'm a little touch and go on the athletics thing. It might have been better, in my personal opinion, to include just a separate stat thing for it, for grappling, but that may again be a bad taste in my mouth from 5e and trying to do it there. But if I don't like it enough, I will probably do or talk about it plenty for Paizo to see, because I like to play grapple builds, but I don't see them always very viable. Maybe the monk will be better because of what I was reading today, but we'll see.
I mean, Bradley's definitely really good at athletics.
Yeah. Well, again, unless you can, and this is kind of one of the problems with it. every fighter and every monk will likely be almost equally as good at grappling as the other. Which, I know, just doesn't feel quite right, especially if neither of them ever invest into grappling foes. Like, their training, their feats, and their choices don't really reflect it. They're just good at it because they are that class. Is not necessarily something that I'm super stoked about. But we'll see how that plays out, because we will get to play it out, because we're going to be playing the playtest. I think that's everything. Any final thoughts before we go, guys?
I'm good.
All right. Well then, travelers, have a
I don't
great
think I
day.
have anything.
Have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Peace.